We have a big agenda today. So, call meeting to order. Let's just go around the room real quick. JP Harris, City of Catawba.
Dana Troy, Sonoma County Transportation Authority, Regional Climate Protection Authority.
Hey, Gavin Waters, I was just appointed by the city of Sebastopol since the last meeting, so happy to be here, citizen rep.
Ken Eichstadt, City of Petaluma.
I'm Marja Tar, City of Petaluma, citizen.
Stephen Schmitz, Sonoma County Transit.
Jason San Pietro, City of Rock Park.
Edie Takata, City of Rock Park.
Alexander Oseguera, City of Santa Rosa.
Will Lyons, Permit Sonoma, unincorporated county.
Mona Ibrahim, Town of Windsor.
Elizabeth Tyree, Sonoma County Regional Parks.
Chris Barney, Sonoma County Transportation Authority, Regional Climate Protection Authority.
And do we have people? We have some folks in the back of the room. Emily?
Hi, Emily Shartney from the Sonoma County Fiscal Coalition.
Adam Garcia, data analyst with SCTA CPA.
And
Read the names.
yeah, I would, because I can't.
So all those on Zoom, we have Ross Clinton here with SCTA, RCPA. We have Michael Blewett from Sonoma County Public Infrastructure, Orlando Ramirez from Caltrans District 4, and Zoe Unruh from SMART.
All right, thank you. Do we have any teleconference disclosures?
No.
Okay. Item number 3, public comment for any items not on the agenda.
We do not have any members of the public on Zoom.
Emily's got her hand.
Just a quick announcement.
But I do need to see, I have that one.
So just a quick announcement that Bike Month is coming up. As you know, it's in May. And we will have our pre-bike bike to work clinic on April 6th at the Trek store here in Santa Rosa. It's an opportunity for folks to come and get their bikes tuned if they haven't ridden them for a while and just kind of to learn what the event is all about. So hopefully we'll see some of you there. Thanks.
Is there anybody on Zoom? Harris? No. Okay. All right, moving on. Number 4.1, complete street checklist. We'll start with the presentation on
Yeah,
the new checklist.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. I have a presentation that was actually given by MTC at the last active transportation working group meeting. Just to run through briefly. Right, one sec. Some information on there. All right, I'll try speaking and see if my voice echoes. All right, so just kind of a brief overview about development of the updated complete streets checklist. There was stakeholder engagement around it in spring 2021. This was developed through the process of the regional active transportation plan update. And the updated policy was adopted in 2022. The regional active transportation network was adopted in summer 2022. And the policy and updated checklist process was implemented in summer 2023. So the goal of the policy is to ensure that people biking, walking, and rolling and taking transit are safely accommodated within the transportation network. I think all this you should all be very familiar with this. And the policy governs all regional discretionary funds and endorsements. So whether funding is being provided through MTC or requires an endorsement from them. And so essentially, it requires, projects that are receiving regional discretionary funding to implement local plans. And if they are on the regional active transportation network, to implement all ages and abilities design principles. So also known as sort of like low stress facilities. Projects that in the right of way that are over $250,000 must complete a complete streets checklist. All right, so just this month, a Google form was released to replace the PDF version that was previously being fillable PDF. And this was based on some feedback from the agencies that were filling out the checklist. The new form link is now on MTC's Complete Streets Policy webpage. And so moving forward, folks can use this form and then actually export a PDF to bring to this committee so that we can review them and discuss them. I'll just give you a heads up. We do have 2 checklists on this agenda today. One is using the old form and one is using the new form. So that's just kind of how timing works out, but you can kind of see the difference in how it exports. And just so that everyone is understanding what we're doing today with the checklist, all checklists are required to go to a local or county bicycle pedestrian advisory committee. Our practice is to always bring them here to this committee. But at the agency's discretion, it can also go to a local bicycle and pedestrian advisory committee before it's submitted to MTC. Oops. And then this is just a recap on the active transportation network, focusing the Bay Area's efforts on providing safe and all ages and abilities active transportation connections in the areas with the highest potential for shifting auto trips to biking and walking trips, and where there's the greatest need for affordable transportation options, and where active trips can connect people with transit for longer distance travel. And yeah, Kara Oberg is the contact at MTC if you have any questions about the form, but just wanted to give you all a heads up that there is a new Google form available. And that's all I have for that item.
And I guess the only big change besides the Google form is when they come to this committee, they're gonna be informational items only and we weren't gonna take any action.
Yeah, we had been taking action on them. Really what we're asking for is comments and feedback. And so we take a draft of the checklist to this committee, and any comments received should be included in the final version of the checklist that's submitted to MTC.
All right, then let's move on to the couple checklists that we have. Item 4.2 is the Smart Windsor Extension Smart Pathway, Windsor High School Undercrossing. And does someone from Smart want to present that? Or do we just,
Well,
do we have anyone?
Zoe is here.
yeah, I'm not sure if Zoe wants to talk about it, or if David, you'd like to give an overview of the project.
Step in. Dave Rickard, SCTA staff. So the 2 checklists in front of you, both this one and the following one for Highway 101, are kind of informational items. They are related to funding for ARM3 for those 2 projects, so they require the police streets checklist. The Smart Undercrossing will provide access to Windsor High School. Once the completion of the Smart Windsor extension is completed, this can be fenced off right away, and so bicyclists and pedestrians cannot legally cross the tracks anymore to get to the high school. And so this will provide an ADA accessible undercrossing from the Smart Pathway under the tracks over to the west side so that kids can get to school still. So last month, the SCTA board committed $2.8 million to complete the ramp access to that undercrossing, which is under construction now. And that's the reason for this checklist before you today. So I'm happy to answer any questions, or we have Zoe online as well.
Stephen has his hand up.
Yes, I just have a quick comment on under 4A. Just add routes 60 and 66. That question. What the response was. Okay.
You want to do the next one also? It's kind of similar to one we did 6 months ago.
Yeah, so the next one, similar to the one we did previously, it's not really an applicable thing where we cannot provide bicycle and pedestrian access on Highway 101. Since it's the state highway, so this one is really just the form's coming to you because we have to do the form. There is some bicycle and pedestrian access along the smart pathway that crosses underneath Highway 101, which is actually one of the locations where the mitigation plantings were installed. So this project is to maintain those plantings for the next 10 years. This is part of the permanent requirements for the project. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, but this is another one where we're requesting funding from MTC to do the work, and we have to bring it to this committee for your input.
So the project is maintaining the plans.
Correct.
That has to have complete streets. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So no.
But you get an exception for it, right? Because no people are allowed.
Yeah, so we clicked the checklist part that has the exception, but we still have to do the form.
My only comment is the SCTA BPAC is today the 26th and you have the 27th.
No, we'll make that correction.
Ross and I are trying to figure out the technology side, I guess, so you can't unmute yourself. So by the way, it's not sure what's going on there, but Ross and I are looking into it and trying to figure that out.
Is that true of all our guests or just Zoe, you think?
Can you unmute him?
Yes. And I
So it might be just for computer.
Okay. All right, any more discussion on these items?
Just direction on comments, if there's any comments after closer review, that could be sent to you, David, right?
So we can receive any comments by Friday. If anyone has any
Friday.
comments.
Okay, let's go to the item regional funding, item 5.1 TDA, Article 3, program of projects.
All right.
This is an action item.
This is an action item. So we released a call for projects for the TDA annual TDA Article 3 program and received applications for 4 projects. Just as a reminder, the way we do the TDA Article 3 funding here in Sonoma County is splitting it among the jurisdictions by share of population. And funds can roll over into future years or be borrowed. Future years can also be borrowed against. So the 4 projects that we received applications for are the Star Road south of Old Red Road Highway pedestrian crossing in the town of Windsor. 2 projects in the city of Santa Rosa, one for rectangular rapid flashing beacon installations. At, I believe up to two locations. And then a road diet and pedestrian improvements on North Dutton Avenue. And then the SCTA submitted an application, which we brought to this committee at our last meeting for replacement equipment for our automated bicycle and pedestrian counters. The total amount of funding requested this year is roughly $367,000. And that left, I believe around 1,300,000 roughly in the bank for the next fiscal year. That will roll over. plus the additional funding for next year. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions, comments, or motions.
Yeah, so Gavin Waters from Sebastopol once again. And correct me if my process is wrong here, but I frequently take the North Dutton Avenue Road where that proposed project is, probably like twice a week as a motorist. That's project 3. And I have a couple of comments. I think that the project should be extended to the north to Guerneville Road. There's a proposed high density development off of Lance Drive, and there's also the North Santa Rosa Smart Station there. So providing some connectivity, perhaps in cooperation with the developers of that project, and then extending it south to the Joe Rodota Trail, which is probably like a block and a half to the south. And then my other recommendation would be upgrading it to a class 4 separated bikeway. But concur that, that stretch of Dutton is right for a road diet.
Do you want to say anything about it, Al?
Yeah, so we actually have slurry projects that happen every year, and through our slurry projects that are coming up, not this year, but next summer, we should be putting that project into place from College Avenue to Guerneville Road for the connectivity piece that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And would be doing a road diet there, and then adding class 2B. So that's with the buffer, and then potentially if we can get funding some other way to get the bollards, we would install bollards there as well.
Yeah.
So I believe a good portion of Dutton going the other way towards Highway 12 will be class 4s. It's
Okay.
just the last segment probably won't be protected because of capacity.
Yeah. I frequently see people riding their bicycles on the sidewalk there, so I mean, it'd be a good place for a project.
Yeah, I mean, it's been one in the works for a while. So hopefully we can start scheduling the funding for that, and maybe we can even get some grant funding. We're looking at different options for that project, so, but obviously we scheduled the 200,000 for this year.
Any further discussion or questions about any of the items? Steve?
Just a clarification for the bike counters, that's just taken off the top, is that right?
Yes, yeah, since SCTA doesn't get an annual allocation, we would just take it off the top, and it would go proportionally based on population from each jurisdiction's allocation.
Anybody on Zoom? All right, I'm looking for a motion in a second.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Edie. Ayes and nays? All right, thank you. Looks like that passed. All right, and then item 5.2, Safe Streets for All grant, fiscal year 2024, call for projects and SCTA coordinated application. I believe that's Chris.
Actually, David, this.
David, all right.
I'm happy to support David.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this item is related to item we had last year for the fiscal year 23 call for projects, and we were successful in getting about $1 million in Safe Streets and Roads for All planning funds, but we were unsuccessful in getting about 24 million in implementation dollars that we applied for. The next call for projects has been released, and we're working on coming up with a strategy on what we want to do Similar to last year's application, we want to do a regional joint application of the jurisdictions and potentially SMART to go after both implementation dollars and plan demonstration grants. The plan demonstration grants have some flexibility where they could be used for quick build type projects to do quick build bicycle facilities or roundabouts or intersection treatments using temporary striping and parking strips, planters, stuff like that. That can be done quickly and cheaply. So we're looking at redoing our application to focus kind of half and half if you can. There's a maximum of 10 million that can be applied for planning demonstration grants and 25 million for implementation. So probably looking at somewhere around 10 million for demonstration projects and planning grants and 15 million for implementation. And we're looking at potentially going after the May 16th due date. That way we have time to put together an application and solicit submittals from the jurisdictions on what projects they would want to include. This item will also be going to the technical advisory committee meeting this week, but our timeline is to hopefully get all the ideas from the jurisdictions by April 18th to give us enough time to turn around the list of projects and develop the grant application, take it to the SCTA RCBA board on May 13th and submit the application to USDOT on May 16th. So really tight timeline. We're trying to reuse a lot of content we did last year. And potentially we'll be having some consultant assistants to help us with that, but happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Edie.
So, and you can tell me if this is more like in the weeds, take it offline. We in City of Roanoke Park, we are considering a demonstration project. And this would have been quick build roundabouts. And we'd heard that there was some interest across other jurisdictions to do that. So if that's something that SCTA puts together as a group application, would it be also SCTA that does the evaluation portion? Because if it's a demonstration project, then it needs to inform an action plan, or in this case, it would be action plans plus the evaluation, data collection and evaluation. So, I mean, it certainly would be easy for Roanoke Park to say, oh, good, SCTA is taking care of our data collection and evaluation and the coordination of updating our action plan, because it's going to be part of all the other action plans. So, you know, again, I could take a discussion offline about this, but I just want to kind of bring that up and say we're thinking about it too. And May 16th, and the other question number 2 would have been, if it takes a little while to develop that sort of group idea, would we be looking at the other due dates for demonstration projects? We
could potentially extend out the due date for the demonstration projects since there is another due date. So there's 3 different due dates for the demonstration projects. There was an earlier one of April 4th. And there's May 16th and August 29th for any remaining funds. So it's a little ways out. As you mentioned, I believe Windsor is also interested in many roundabouts and potentially also Santa Rosa. So it's something that one of the feedback we got from USDOT was we need to have more consistent like narrative and theme in the application. So having several jurisdictions going after similar projects, I think would help us when it comes to implementing the grant and reporting and stuff like that. I think there's some details we'd still need to work out because we would potentially either be receiving the funds directly from the way and pass them through the cities, or potentially there's a chance that Caltrans may be able to pass through the funds to us. But then still a question of, does SCTA take on everything, which we probably wouldn't want to deal with construction projects on local jurisdiction right away. But then it's also a pain if we have to pass through the funds, then you have to deal with that reporting requirements stuff. So I think there's some stuff we can discuss offline, but it's something that we want to help on. It's just a matter of how much do you want us to get involved.
Stephen, I'm curious to see the list from last year. If that's available.
We can send that out.
Great, thank you.
David, were all the projects completed in 2023, or there's still leftover money from that for anybody?
So the only funding that we got was for the planning grant, and none of the implementation grant projects have gotten funding from other sources as far as.
So what about planning? Because that would include some quick builds or demonstration projects.
So the planning funds we got, there was 800,000 to do a countywide Safe Streets.
Safe routes to
Six-
school plan
Was it 800,000 or 600,000?
with match, it's around 800,000.
So there was funding for a safe routes to school plan, funding for a corridor study on the highway in Petaluma, and then some speed and reduction studies as well.
We're still working out the funding agreement, so haven't started those yet. So,
But those are all the projects that will be in that. So if we are interested in something like that, we want to get to you by 18th for this next application.
yeah, I think we could include additional planning projects, right? Yeah,
All right. Okay, we know about-
yeah.
And we're happy to brainstorm offline if anyone wants to talk ideas.
Anybody else in the room? Questions? Zoom?
Sorry, now it's gonna this is Zoe with Smart. I think we had the implementation project that was unfunded in the last round. And we would be interested in partnering with SCTA to look at another implementation project opportunity in this cycle. So we really appreciate the partnership and look forward to working with you.
Thank you, David. And let's move on to item 6.1, the countywide active transportation plan update and draft prioritization criteria.
Yeah, all right, thank you. We last CBPAC meeting in January, we brought kind of a high level list of criteria for prioritizing projects in the countywide active transportation plan, including the 7 local jurisdiction plans that we're updating through this process. We took a more detailed descriptions of those criteria to technical advisory working groups with each of those 7 jurisdictions for some feedback and review. And now just wanted to bring it to this committee. So I'm gonna just share my screen again and give a high level overview of where we are on the project. And then jump into the criteria. We also brought this criteria for discussion at our Citizens Advisory Committee meeting last night, and we're also plan to bring it to our Technical Advisory Committee meeting on Thursday. So we're doing a little roadshow this week. And let's see. All right, so just a little overview on where we are in the process of the countywide active transportation plan. We have done work to establish the foundation, identify existing conditions, and work through technical analysis, including a level of traffic stress analysis. Looking into project concepts to improve the level of traffic stress or lower the level of traffic stress. Last fall, we had the first round of public engagement with an online map viewer to identify locations for physical improvements, and attended a number of pop-up events throughout the county, and also had a survey to get some more feedback on programs and policies. We had 2 focus groups early this year, and are planning a 3rd later this spring, kind of to reach various different communities that we may not have been able to reach through our survey or pop-up events, and identify kind of specific various just specific populations as well. We have developed draft, kind of administrative draft projects, policies and programs, and met with each jurisdiction staff to review those and gather feedback, and developed draft priorities, which we will talk about a little bit more today. The second round of engagement is coming up starting around mid-April, and will go through the end of June. So we will have another online tool for feedback, and we'll be attending pop-up events throughout the county. Again, to get feedback on the draft project lists, maps, and programs. During that timeframe, we will also be holding open house type events that are specifically for the plan, to gather input before finalizing the projects and developing the draft plans. City of Cotati is further ahead in the process, and the draft plan has been developed and is out, and comments were accepted through yesterday. That's right. So be getting a final plan next month, and wrapping up Cotati's plan. All right, and then we will of course go into board and council approvals of each plan aspect. So in terms of prioritization criteria, the memo in your agenda packet has a little more detail, but essentially the criteria that we are looking at to prioritize projects into 3 different tiers, like tier 1, 2, and 3, include safety. So projects that are along or parallel to a high injury network identified in the Vision Zero action plan, or that have came up in local road safety plans. Equity would be the next criteria, and we looked at various criteria that's used for federal, state, and regional definitions that are used for a variety of different types of grant sources. Then thirdly, we looked at proximity to existing transit and future smart stations as well. So really looking at a 1/4 mile buffer around all transit stops to really improve mostly focus on the pedestrian access to transit stops. And then for the larger transit hubs, transfer centers, transfer hubs, and smart stations, we looked at a 1 mile buffer around those areas to improve access. We looked at proximity to schools and colleges, so 1/2 mile for walking and 1 mile for biking. And then regional priorities, so bicycle projects, we've identified a draft regional network for the countywide plan, and so we looked at that as well as MTC's regional active transportation network. So a point for being on each one. We also looked at kind of high access, low stress areas. So low stress projects in priority geographies identified by the county or MTC. So essentially these are planned development areas. So low stress gap closures in those areas. This next round of engagement will help us identify kind of or confirm projects that are highly supported by community, and we're considering kind of a bonus point for projects that really show strong support during the second round of engagement from the community. These tiers in this draft prioritization or the draft prioritization criteria are all weighted equally. And so far from like a staff level feedback, we haven't received any feedback to necessarily weight anything differently. I think that to date, most of the staff level feedback we've received is maybe looking at one-off projects here and there that it should maybe be elevated or downgraded kind of based on local knowledge. So each jurisdiction has 3 tiers, and it's really looking at the projects comparing projects within each jurisdiction rather than among all of the jurisdictions.
Quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
How do you prioritize the bonus points in the next round of community input?
Yeah, so we haven't fully confirmed that, but I think the idea is, if there are particular projects that are getting a lot of public support and interest, or maybe we set a certain number of comments or feedback on specific projects or supporting prioritization of certain projects, then that project would get an extra point, and that could bump it up into a higher tier.
So direct feedback or through a survey?
Yeah, both really. So we will have a survey out, and it hasn't been developed yet, but I believe the idea will be to have something included in the survey that allows people to, pick their top priorities for projects.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tier 1 projects will be high priority, and is sort of a way to help staff at the local jurisdictions kind of identify projects that should be focused on first for implementation and identifying funding, kind of based on criteria that really aligns with a lot of the grant sources that are out there, and focuses in on both equity but also usage of the facilities and potential for mode shift. So tier 1 projects are most aligned with the local and regional active transportation plan goals, and the idea is to prioritize them first for implementation. And then tier 2 would be next, and tier 3 would be sort of lower priority projects. But so yeah, just wanted to get feedback from the committee if there's any questions you have about the prioritization criteria, things that you think might be missing, or get feedback on whether some of the criteria seem more important to active transportation investments than others.
Thank you very much, Dan. Excellent. Is there going to be like a master list that's developed and there's cost associated with all these projects? Is that kind of the vision?
We, our consultants are developing a cost estimating tool. It's still in draft form, and so we will be able to do some kind of high level cost estimates using that. And yes, in the countywide plan, there will be one very large list of projects. Our current plan that was adopted in 2014 had some language about updating those project lists periodically without having to update the entire plan, and we have done that a few times since the last plan update. That also allows us to bring in the project lists from jurisdictions that are not updating their plans through the countywide process. So Petaluma, San Rosa, and Windsor. Once those local plans are adopted, we can bring those project lists under the countywide active transportation plan, which helps when we submit it to the the regional transportation program, kind of as a programmatic category. Having all those projects under one list is useful.
I'll go again. So definitely like the idea of connecting the various modes of transit. Public transit and active transportation features. So I like that aspect of it, and as well, bonus points for feedback from the community. I mean, often people ride, walk, and roll those places every day, so they know kind of what's needed. So in a way that, I'm sure your staff and you all just don't have the capacity to check things out on the ground.
Thanks, I appreciate that. I'll also just mention that during the first round of feedback or of public engagement, a lot of the projects that we have in the draft plan or the draft project list were really identified through the project, through that community input. So this next round will be more of a prioritization and does anything need to be tweaked and based off of local community knowledge.
Any other comments in the room? Questions? How about on Zoom?
This is Zoe with Smart. Just thank you for continuing to do this work on the plan. I think the prioritization criteria, that's great.
Yeah, I thought it worked pretty good for Katati, the way it was put together, and then I think what you said is right. We just identified a few one-offs that we wanted to either elevate or lower, but we thought the criteria it worked pretty well. That's my experience. All right.
I just have
Stu,
a quick question. If any other jurisdictions have identified specific sidewalk gap closure type projects, and if that's going to be, a separate list that's prioritized, any of the smaller jurisdictions are doing that.
I can answer for Katati. Ours was divided into more bicycle focused and then also pedestrian focused.
Okay.
And there was a sidewalk gap kind of list of projects.
Okay.
Yeah, I can show it to you. Actually, I have the draft with me. I can show it to you after the.
Yeah, so similarly, City of Sonoma did they actually provided data for sidewalk gaps, and those projects were included in the prioritization. And Healdsburg did a sidewalk gap assessment as well, and those are being prioritized.
We didn't actually do a lot of sidewalk gap, but identified a lot of locations where we needed crosswalks or pedestrian or enhanced pedestrian crossings to make them safe. That was more of our priority, was to create safer crosswalks.
Thank you.
Turns out sidewalks are controversial. I got a petition the other day. People not wanting sidewalks in their neighborhood.
Are they like the country
And
feel?
and it was pages and pages long, a lot of signatures. Yeah. So. All right, any other comments or questions? All right. Then item 6.2, community-based transportation planning information.
That's me. And I apologize for those in the room that have heard this one or two or maybe 3 times. I think Stephen's maybe. But yeah, let me go ahead and get the slides up here really quick and provide an update on the community-based transportation.
I'm gonna start charging you use of this picture,
I know, Steven's on one of the slides. It's famous.
I'm like,
So yeah, I just wanted to give a brief update on our community-based transportation planning process. We've been working on getting this going for the last 6 months or so, and so we're gonna be looking more specifically at the South Santa Rosa area in Santa Rosa and the unincorporated area south of Santa Rosa and Central Roanoke Park to examine transportation needs and priorities. So there's Stephen there. So yeah, we do need to give him some sort of royalties, I guess. But the Community-Based Transportation Planning Program, or CBTP program, is a regional program that is really focused on improving access and mobility for underserved and marginalized communities across the region in the Bay Area. So it's really geographically focused, and MTC, or the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, uses a formula to identify census tracts that are known as equity priority communities. So it includes things like lower incomes, communities of color, single family or single parent households, zero vehicle households, things like that as part of the criteria. And so the goal here is to really get out in the community and talk to people about, number one, what are barriers and transportation issues people are dealing with, and then working with them to come up with a list of community identified transportation projects and solutions. So where are roadway crossings needed, where are sidewalk gaps people would like to see filled, what types of facilities would people like to see to help improve conditions in these neighborhoods, help them get around safer and easier. So here's a map showing equity priority communities in the North Bay and Sonoma County. So you can see one out in West County in the Russian River area, concentration in Santa Rosa and South Santa Rosa, and then Roanoke Park, and also the Springs area of Sonoma Valley over east there.
Those are based on census boundaries, right?
Yeah, they're
Whether
all,
some of them are low.
yeah, they're all census tract boundaries, so relatively large. So we've prepared a number of CBTPs in the county in the past. So the first was the Santa Rosa Roseland plan. We also prepared plans for the Russian River area, the Sonoma Valley Springs area, and Central Healdsburg about 10 or 15 years ago. So they're relatively older documents, but a lot of the projects there have not been completed or implemented yet. So here's a quick look at the types of projects that have been identified in these areas, things like transit routes and stops, improved transit headways, bike ped improvements, sidewalk connections, traveler information, and then safety improvements come up a lot, right? Identifying unsafe locations and intersections. And I would mention, before moving on to this, so a lot of these projects that have been identified, they're eligible for funding streams for implementing these types of projects. So one example is, or was, Santa Rosa City Bus Route 19. It has it's Route 9, I think now.
I think so.
But that's transit service that serves the Roseland area. And so that was identified in the Roseland plan, was able to be funded through MTC to actually be implemented. So the idea here is to get that list out there to be able to tee up some of these projects for funding and implementation. So the first area we're going to be looking at is the South Santa Rosa Avenue corridor, which stretches roughly from Highway 12 up in the north down to Mountain View Avenue in the south. So it's really the area straddling Santa Rosa Avenue with a lot of the commercial areas and multifamily residential areas. So it does include incorporated Santa Rosa City areas and unincorporated areas. There's a pretty sizable population there, over 10,000 people and 3,500 households. With over 50% of the households with incomes of less than 200% of the federal population. So quite a lot of financial need there. Over 60% of the population is classified as minority. And then, I think most of us have driven through or been through this corridor. There's quite a mix of housing, commercial and job areas here, but it's very difficult to get from one location to the other if you're not in a car. Right? it feels quite dangerous and difficult to walk, bike, or roll in this area. So that's one area we'd like to get out in the community and find out specific issues and identify projects for improving conditions.
What is the southern boundary? Is that Mountain View?
Mount View, yeah, and it's right north of, Runner Park City limits.
Quick comment, there's also a huge amount of development happening along that corridor right now.
Definitely, and there are a few other planning exercises underway as well. So there's the Santa Rosa General Plan. There's an area-specific plan underway that Santa Rosa is undertaking, and also the active transportation plan. So a lot of planning activities happening in that area. And one thing that we've heard a lot of is there's a lot of fatigue among the community with outreach. So we're definitely coordinating with the city and these other groups to make sure that we're holding maybe one meeting instead of 4 different meetings to ask people to comment on how things are in the community. So the next area we'll be looking at is the Central Lorna Park area. This is the area straddling Rohnert Park Expressway and State Farm Drive. So there are 2 different census tracts out in this area with, again, it's pretty heavily populated with over 10,000 people and 4,000 households. About a third of the households are lower income, over 50% minority population. And it's quite similar to the Santa Rosa area in a lot of ways as well. There's a mix of higher density housing and commercial and job uses there. And it's difficult to get between them if you're not in the car. And there are also other planning activities going on in the area as well. So the timing is pretty fortuitous. So these are the rough steps that we will be going through. So the first box there has been delayed somewhat. So we're looking at getting the request for proposals to get a consultant on board in April. So we're working with our funding partner, MDC, to work through a few issues there. So we have those mostly resolved. So we're hoping to get that RFP out very soon. So looking forward to that and getting a consultant on board to help us with the project. One of the first things we'll be doing in both areas is establishing a stakeholder committee to help guide the project. And work with those stakeholders to develop a community outreach strategy. Identify different communities and areas we'd like to talk to and work with, and also outline how many meetings and where they should be held. And then the bulk of the project starts with getting out in the community and talking to people and identifying transportation gaps and barriers, right? So what are the problems? What can we do to help make things better out there? And then, I think one of the most exciting parts of this project is working with community members and stakeholders to identify projects, right? To do brainstorming and come up with a list. And one of the things that Dana was able to do as part of our last comprehensive transportation plan update was to go through those list of projects from the old plans and provided a progress report on projects that had been completed and where we're at in completing them. So it's pretty cool to see these identified and then actually implemented over time. So taking all that outreach, the gaps and barriers and projects, we use that to develop a CBTP or a document for each area, and then present the findings to stakeholders and the community groups and elected officials in each of those areas. So here's what we're looking to develop as part of the project. Number one is that list of projects, right, that are coming from the community. Also identifying potential funding sources for these projects. MDC has certain funding streams tied directly to these areas. And so in addition to those, we'd like to identify other ways of implementing them. The list of issues and barriers is very important as well. So along with the projects, and then having the report that we can refer to over time along with that list. So here are the types of things we'll do for outreach. Community meetings will be very important. Also public hearings in the communities that we'll be working in. Online outreach is very important these days. So we've gotten better at it through the pandemic. So we'll likely have a map that people can use to drop pins and provide comments that way, and also to comments and virtually. And then as we release documents and reports, we'll take comments on those documents. So yeah, we're really excited about the project. little bummed that it's taking a little bit longer to get it officially kicked off, but we're almost there and excited to be moving on this. So, yeah, and I can bring it back updates as we develop materials for this project. So, and thank you, Stephen, for starring in the presentation.
I'm trying to think about how long ago that, I think that was in Healdsburg, the last time you did CBTP, so that's like 15.
Yeah, the Rosen one was 2009, I think. So Healdsburg must have been 2010, 2011, yeah. So,
By.
yeah, that's certain. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Any questions, comments, Emily?
Thanks. So I'm just curious, Chris, you mentioned the many other plans that are already underway, and I'm curious, I guess, how this plan or these plans are going to, incorporate the work of, the active transportation plan, for instance, and also, differ from this work that's already going on. A lot of it seems like it's going to really overlap quite a bit. So I'm wondering if you can speak more about that.
Yeah, so the timing is, we'll have some initial project lists from the active transportation plans going into this. So I think that'll be a great foundation to build on, right? But one thing to keep in mind with these plans is it's not only bicycle pedestrian types of projects that could come out of it. It could be transit type projects, including, stop improvements, right? Like shelters and seating at individual stops. So small projects like that, crossings, even parking type projects. So it's all inclusive, all transportation. So I think certainly active transportation and transit will be a big focus of that, but it's more of an all-inclusive look at transportation in these areas and what the community really wants and needs. So one part of the scope is to look at all those other planning exercises and coordinating with them and making sure that we're building on that. And we don't want to lose what we've learned as part of the active transportation plan or the general plan of work of these other projects, right? So we want to be in sync with that and build on it instead of going off and doing something separate. But there will be, different components that'll come up as part of the outreach, I'm sure, that maybe didn't come up as part of the active transportation.
And does this at all then, does this affect the priorities list that we were just looking at with regard to the active transportation plan, or how do those things kind of intersect, do you expect?
Yeah, so I guess for the Santa Rosa community-based transportation plan, their active transportation plan is on a separate track. So I guess I would defer to the city if there's any influence on their active transportation plan from the community-based transportation plan. I think that the timing of this for Roner Park's active transportation plan will be that we will have a draft plan out when we're really getting into the community-based, our draft active transportation plan out for Roner Park. By the time we're really getting into the work for community-based transportation plan. So I would see it more as the active transportation plan projects could feed into the community-based transportation plan for that one.
I know in our discussion with Fear and Peers, because Healdsburg doesn't meet a lot of the equity community categories. They mentioned that we could get points for equity if we use projects from our, I think, 2009 community-based transportation plan. I don't know if other plans would do that if the timing would work out, but just.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I forgot to mention that was a piece of the prioritization criteria we were looking at before is older community-based transportation plan projects. So I think we only found a few in Healdsburg that were active transportation and had not been implemented.
Yeah.
So we gave an extra point to those.
And speaking to Santa Rosa, Alexander, we're meeting every month or two to coordinate these different planning efforts, just to make sure we're incorporating each other's work and we're coordinating all of that. So yeah, we we want to build and have this be a collective type effort, not reinventing the wheel over and over again.
Yeah, I think, part of, the CBTP is connecting like the county portions with the city portions, right? So once you get past Bellevue, right, we don't have a plan for that, but it'll be a more focused plan to connect that, So I think that's a positive to it. And I think our plan might inform theirs, like Dave was kind of saying, so. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought right, this CBTP it makes it so we have access to certain grants, right?
Yeah, so MTC used to have something called the Lifeline Transportation Funding Program that was specifically focused on these types of projects. So it's morphed into something different. I've talked about the CARE program in the past, which is a little bit in limbo right now because of the state budget, but there's something coming, and certainly these projects, if they show up in these types of plans, can compete pretty well for different grant programs.
Anybody on Zoom have any questions or comments? All right, thank you, Chris. Grant opportunities and announcements, 7.1 active transportation program cycle 7.
I can jump in and just run through the bullets I've included in here. I just want to make sure everyone's aware that there is a workshop on the new application portal for the active transportation program tomorrow morning at 9:30, and I've included a link where you can register if you're interested in attending that. I heard at MTC's Active Transportation Working Group that they're asking for people to reach out to Carl Anderson at MTC if they are interested in applying for quick build projects through the active transportation program. Just to, get a sense of maybe how the regional portion is reviewing those projects. So I encourage you to do that if that is something that you're thinking about. Just reminder, the applications are due June 17th. And the materials for both the statewide and the regional program are linked in the agenda packet as well. Another update, I guess I should just add, is that in past rounds, there's been entirely separate review of both the statewide program and the regional program. And like a new review, like separate review committees as well. My understanding is that this round, the region will take the statewide scores and then add on the layer of regional criteria after the statewide applications are scored. So rather than doing a thorough review, like a second thorough review with Bay Area committees, they'll take that scoring for the projects that were not selected for the statewide program and add the regional criteria to the scoring. So that's all I have on the ATP.
Questions, comments? On Zoom? All right, thanks, Dana. And then ATIIP, the Active Transportation Infrastructure Investment Program.
Yeah, so I just wanted to include this information in here. I don't have a lot of information about it, but wanted to make sure that folks are aware of it. My understanding is that it's, sort of a smaller amount of funding, and for kind of what is required of the grant application. But speaking with the Rails to Trails folks, I guess were very instrumental in developing this program. And the hope is that you know, if there's a lot of applications, a lot of demand for this, a lot of applications received, that that will demonstrate the need for funding in this area, and the next round may be able to get more funding. So yeah.
Did you attend the workshop yesterday?
I did not know. Did you?
One of those, let's consider.
Okay, great.
Same.
Okay.
Federal grant.
It is a federal grant coming out of the bipartisan infrastructure law.
And there's projects funding for planning as well as implementation.
Okay, any questions? On Zoom? Okay, PCA grant call for projects priority.
That's me. And I have just a few slides I can share that'll kind of outline everything. We can get this out to everyone after the meeting, so you have it all in one spot. I tried to distill down the call for projects into four or so slides, so it's easier to digest. So let me go ahead and bring that up. So this is a MDC grant program, a regional grant program, really focused on priority conservation areas, with the goal of providing connections to our open spaces and recreational and agricultural lands. So there are a few different eligible activities listed up there. They're supposed to be within or have a strong connection to existing priority conservation areas. So there is a map later in these slides that'll show where they are in Sonoma County. And they should be regionally significant types of projects as well. So of a certain length, which is outlined in the call for projects documentation. So there are a few different types of projects here, including protection, restoration, and enhancement of open spaces and agricultural lands. One thing that's probably of a lot of interest to this group is pedestrian bicycle facilities, right? Including trails, pathways, on-road facilities, sidewalk, bike connections, and lighting and safety. Keeping in mind that this is really focused on making those connections to open spaces, parks, and natural lands. Urban greening is a new category that's popped up as part of this grant cycle. So really looking at protecting and enhancing green spaces, community health, stormwater, things like that. And then also visual enhancements is new. So funding turnouts, overlooks, and viewing areas of natural lands. Here's an overview of the funding available in the two different phases. So the first phase will be kicking off this spring. There's 8.5 million available region-wide for existing PCAs only. And then there's going to be a second call probably this fall, looking at new PCAs, and that will also help fund some work for Senate Bill 1425. So this is part of the general plans that's focused on open spaces. So the minimum project's cost is 200,000 with a max of 1 million per project, and MDC is targeting at least one project per county. So all the money won't be going to one location in the Bay Area. With 50% of at least that first phase targeting the North Bay. So these do need to be relatively shovel-ready projects with a 2 to 3 year implementation timeframe for those projects. Here's a look at PCAs. So those blue hatched areas are priority conservation areas in Sonoma County, and also a little bit of Napa and Marin there. So there is a link to this map in the slides. So I'll ask Drew to send this out after the meeting so you have access to it. And so you can click on that. So there are two different pieces of this map that I just point out. One includes the existing PCAs, which are eligible for that first round of funding. And then there's that second portion you can see on the left, the eligible PCA areas, which includes basically the whole county. So that kind of shows eligibility for the next round potentially. So we funded 4 different projects through this program in the past. 3 have been construction projects and 1 was a planning project. So there are some highway and bridge type projects. So there's a trail bridge replacement for the Joe Redondo Trail. that was funded through this, the Crocker Bridge Bike and Ped project. And then some improvements for the Bodega Highway, a section out of to the west of Sebastopol. One planning project was funded, I believe it was about 7 or 8 years ago, focused on open space preservation and urban growth. So that's that urban footprint project there. So here's the timeline. It wasn't our RFP that was released. I apologize for that. It was the call for projects on 11th of March. The way MTC is running this is they're not asking for detailed applications starting out. They'd like to get letters of interest first. And so based on those letters and the project concepts in those letters, they'll invite folks that submitted those letters to put together a full application if they think it'll, score well for the program. So less investment upfront, a little more coming this summer if MTC would like you to move forward with the process. So full proposals will be due on the 28th of August. And then a recommended project will go to the MTC or the full commission in November. And they're hoping to get things going by December or January later this year or next year. So again, there's a link to the grant page on MTC's website. So we'll go ahead and get these slides out so you have all those links and the link to the map and all the grant criteria. I just wanted to make sure this is on everyone's radar. We definitely want to see at least one project for Sonoma County selected this round, but yeah, wanted to make sure all of you are aware. We took this information to the planners and we'll be taking it to the Technical Advisory Committee on Thursday as well. So hopefully the word's getting out.
Are there any PCAs within the jurisdictions, the incorporated jurisdictions?
Not this time around, I don't think. Certainly.
Can I give a quick update on that? It doesn't show up well on the map if you zoom in, but there are a number of trails. The Barrier Ridge Trail runs through Petaluma and some other jurisdictions. So you'd have to kind of look in a little bit closer. We can try to find some other maps that might show those a little bit more, but we could potentially provide just a quick analysis too of showing which PCAs are within city jurisdictions. That's a quick intersect if folks are interested as well.
You can definitely zoom in on this map.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some of it looked like, I couldn't tell, like, it just a dot showing the jurisdictions. I'm like, oh, is that PCA?
What are the dots represent?
So the first time they tried to map this, they didn't have a good sense for where the actual boundaries were based on the descriptions for the original PCA application. So they guessed and put a dot kind of in the general area. So they've done, they've done some work over the last number of years to try and get a better sense for where the actual boundaries are. So that's the patch here.
Thank you for providing this map. I tell you, trying to find the map is the hardest thing to do with the information from PCs pulled together. So I look for
Great
for this because I was using the past colored map. That's a PDF, but it's not really descriptive. And we do have a number of priority conservation areas, and with the bridge replacement for Joe Rodota Trail, part of the pitch was it was in the PCA, but it was also connecting Sebastopol and Santa Rosa, so it's the urban populations. That's what brought that project to higher priority.
Yeah, I think making the case of connections and surveys, you can make that too. So. But yeah, Adam is a good resource too. He's been very involved in this, especially the next round, right? Like identifying the potential. So.
County, with a couple other jurisdictions, is initiating a habitat conservation plan for the Santa Rosa Plain. And I wonder, I mean, it's a big project, it's gonna take years, but I wonder if this would be a good.
Who's doing that? Isn't it?
Rich Stabler of the county.
And permits, no?
Yeah, I think-
Right.
Yeah.
Rich Stabler is with County Parks.
County Parks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No.
No? I think he's with permits, I mean, environmentals.
Don't find that.
Okay.
We don't talk.
But he works with us.
Yeah.
So good cross.
Yeah, so maybe I'll send this over to him, so he's, you know.
Yeah, aware of it, yeah.
And that's a really long-term project.
Yeah, that
People are
one,
trying to
yeah.
wrap their heads around because it's, it's pretty big. But this is a program Sonoma County Regional Parks is looking at, and we would certainly welcome partnership projects.
Great, yeah, let us know what we can do to help too. With any information, if you're having trouble finding things or.
He's with natural resources.
Natural resources, okay.
Other part of the building.
All right, any other questions, comments about it? Online, Zoom? All right, thanks, Chris. All right, let's go with roundtable updates. Start with Liz, go this way.
Nothing to report this time, and I hope our road partner will be reporting on something. We're working with Windsor Park on a project. They may have updates with that. Sorry.
I think paper is in hands of both of our sets of journeys, so.
Right. So nothing to update.
Okay, thanks. Mona?
Sorry.
Not much to update. I mean, we're just starting discussion. We received a Affordable Housing Sustainability Grant for the Akashaya Housing Development with Burbank Housing, and our portion of the grant is to do complete streets between Alrata to Windsor Road, so a little over a mile. And SMART has a portion of that grant too that goes to the platform that we're building for the Windsor station. So we're just beginning to figure out figuring out what that grant really entails. So we just started on that.
Nothing too terribly new at the county, just still beginning to kick off the general plan. I believe our RFPs went out a couple weeks ago, so TBD, but that will be a huge countywide effort, and we will be in touch once it's under.
Yeah, I mean, a cycle track project that we had got funding from the TFCA grant, supposed to be hoping to get it done starting in mid-April, right on Santa Rosa Avenue between First Street and Sonoma, weather permitting, but that's when we're scheduled to do it with our in-house streets crew. And then there's gonna be like a ramp as well that they might get done this week. So that's exciting. And then might be a little early for this, but we're planning on co-hosting a bike and block party. So that's going to be on 4th Street between B Street and Mendocino Avenue. And so we're closing down the street for Bike to Work Day. So May 16th from 5 to 8. There's not going to be food vendors. It's going to be more geared towards, supporting the local businesses there, but there's going to be live music and some activities at the courthouse as well. So it's pretty exciting, trying to, promote biking to work and kind of have like a family friendly event too, and promoting the businesses downtown. So excited about that.
So the deer in the headlights look was the trail to Crane Creek Regional Park. I know you've heard this several times. But we do think we're getting pretty close. Construction documents are done now, so hopefully this summer before it gets to be into fall, and then winter we might be in construction, but we're waiting for many, many pieces of paper, conservation easements, recreation, covenants, funding agreements between at least 3 parties, old agreements that we're trying to get mitigation credits for something that happened in 2001. It's very complicated, but hopefully you'll see a ribbon cutting, soft opening before next year. For now, it's gone a long time. I'm gonna pass this to Jason in case he has anything else.
Yeah, so we have a roundabout pilot project that we purchased a modular roundabout from a company called Vortex Roundabouts. Our in-house streets crew plan on installing it in April if we get basically 2 weeks of dry weather, so they can do all the striping and the installation of this modular roundabout. And for us, it's kind of like a pilot project of trying to get rid of stop signs. And people, so citizens in the neighborhoods get pretty upset about people running stop signs or speeding through straightaways, or Roanoke Park has wide roads in a lot of our old neighborhoods. So we're testing this to see if it is a viable solution for people in our city.
Are those technically roundabouts or are they traffic circles?
Well, I mean, it's got splitter. Technically, it's a mini roundabout. So if you look up like FHWA's definition,
Where did you say you purchased it from?
Vortex roundabouts.
There's a lot of really good YouTube videos on those. They're very easy to install, take out stop signs. And continue to provide access for like large trucks and delivery vehicles. They can just roll right over them.
Yeah, fully mountable surface.
This is the, replicating this is kind of, toying with the idea of the SS4A grants, and then since it has a demonstration, studying that those applications over several types of conditions.
Yeah, so like, yeah, exactly. So yeah, minor collectors, residential neighborhoods, potentially major collectors. We'll kind of see how this unfolds.
That will form action. But that's why I'm hoping to talk to whichever jurisdictions are interested in that. If we do the root thing, then I want to talk to David about, well, there's a study, evaluation, but that, I don't know if that's been done on the jurisdiction level, or altogether, and then it's detailed, but these things we want to try to.
I'd like to be interested. Patty voters won't let me.
So about 2 weeks ago, we had what they called a bike and pedestrian summit at the Board of Supervisors. And that's the first time I've ever heard of a workshop. Wait, did I say summit? I meant workshop, sorry. I went too big. I need to bring myself back down. It was only a workshop, but it felt like a summit. So SCTA director was there, as well as Permit Sonoma and the regional parks, what's now called public infrastructure. They used to be public works. So they all wanted to kind of get together and brainstorm with the board. How do we move bike and pedestrian projects in the unincorporated areas, at least move those forward quicker and find funding for those types of projects. So it was a good first step, I think. Like I said, it's the first time I've ever heard of a workshop at the board with this top topic. But the two main things that I took away from it was that they were going to create a task force of all the different departments so that they could collaborate better and start communicating with each other on what priorities were. And within some of the departments, at least the departments that are implementing agencies like regional parks and public infrastructure, they're looking at creating, and I think I've got the terminology correct, bike units. I wrote down bike teams, but I don't think it's bike teams. I think it's bike planning units or something like that. So staff in each agency department that would focus just on bike and ped. I think you could kind of already got that at regional parks, but they didn't really have that at public infrastructure yet. So they're going to come back to the board under budget adjustments and perhaps assign a new engineer toward that task at public infrastructure. So I think it's obviously going in the right direction, and we'll just see how it plays out, but it's good stuff.
So Thursday, we're gonna try another street sweeper. This is number 4. And I will say Sonoma County Bike Coalition really appreciate bringing the bike pole sweeper out. We tried that and it's got some potential. There's another one coming out Thursday, built in Ireland. It'll go from 4.5 feet up to 8 feet. Both brushes in the front can retract, expand. It looks pretty neat. This one is diesel, but they're working on an electric one. So I'm hopeful for that. Santa Rosa and Roner Park have been invited. If anybody else wants information or wants to be invited, let me know. Bjorn Griepenberg is probably, you're going to see him more coming into these meetings. So I just want to give a shout out to that. And then we've been doing a lot of safe routes to school work, which is super enlightening because it is crazy around schools. And I've spent a fair amount of time around schools, and it's controlled chaos is how we describe it. So, but we can do better. The kids don't want to be in the cars, and the parents don't necessarily want to be in a traffic jam in front of school. So, we're working on that. And then on the same thing, our safe routes to schools at Loma Vista, we're redoing Maria Drive. That's going into construction. So we're going to get the connectivity from Santa Rosa JC down Maria all the way to the East Side Transit Center. So it's going to be that's a good connector road project. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Can I add something? Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
He reminded me of something. We actually have a Steel Lane pilot project or pilot study that's going on right now. So it's right in front of Steel Lane Elementary. He starts talking about safe routes to school and doing that stuff. So it's a road diet in front of a school, and we're trying to see what the potential impacts are so that we can road diet right in front of the school, on a multi-lane roadway, to make it, obviously safer for kids to cross and hopefully eliminate potential collisions. So just something that's going on, but there's a lot of traffic there. So we'll see how it works out.
Ken, with the sweeper, would you operate the sweeper, or would you partner with like Ecology, or who would operate?
It's all on the table. Your Roner Park's contract is coming up and is a little bit further along. I sent this to City Hall. So Patrick Carter manages Recology, and I said, invite them, do whatever you want to do. I'm not necessarily part of that agreement, that process, but they seemed very interested because after they found out that we had looked at this Dutch sweeper, Rova, we had it out there. It was 100% electric. They pinged me on that. So now they found out about it. Like, how was it? What do you think? And I think what we're trying to do here is to get Recology or whoever is doing our street sweeping, get them to buy the new equipment as the old equipment ages out, can go into places where we've got these buffered bike lanes that are just narrow, that are building up with a lot of debris. It's so.
We're pushing on that, because it's in our contract, that Recology sweeps bike lanes. So, I'm not part of the conversations either, but what I'm understanding is that Recology is seeing the light. I mean, as in they see that we're not an isolated incident where there's bike lanes and roads that they need to get into. So they need to know about silence too. So they're thinking on it.
Yeah, there's actually our protected bike lane that we have on Ridgeway. They did like a buddy system where they would blow and sweep kind of thing. They said they were going to continually do that. So it's kind of moving in a good direction.
Does Santa Rosa contract with Recology?
Yeah.
Because they're doing that now, they just said it takes one. It takes, yeah, somebody, two people are not picking up garbage.
When are you doing your demonstration?
11:30 Thursday at Palo Verde Way and North McDowell. 11:30 this Thursday, Palo Verde Way, just south of South Point and North McDowell. So, and certainly ping me, I'll send you the invite.
Gavin, did you want to?
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Healdsburg is proceeding with the bollard removal on the Foss Creek pathway. I think I probably mentioned this before, but we're going with removing the outer two bollards. We had three at each entrance, paving over and then striping it. Supposed to happen, I think, nowish, but we got held up because there's some community members who use it. It's a pretty important north-south connection, so we're looking at getting a flagger while some of that paving takes place, so they can still use the pathway. We're also having a big meeting for our Grove Street neighborhood plan implementation at March 28th, so it's a couple days. It's mostly a project that's looking at like pedestrian improvements between Grant and Dry Creek.
Drew, looks like we lost a lot, but are there anybody still there?
Michael Fluid from Sonoma County Public Infrastructure and Christina Panza from the Sonoma County Fiscal Coalition.
If they'd like to share anything, that'd be fine.
Hi, sure, Christina here. I just wanted to, well, thank Alexander and Ken for being involved with all the walk audits in Santa Rosa and Petaluma that we've been doing. And Bjorn too. That's been a really good process to visit schools during drop-off time and to really look at what their issues are and hear from them and, you know, educate them also on what the city is doing, the cities are doing. It's been really great to build those connections, and also through our task force in Petaluma has been really, you know, we've been getting a lot of school participation at those task force meetings. At the Santa Rosa task force, we're still working on figuring out how to get people there, but it's been still a great collaboration between the city and the school districts that have participated in that. And I am putting in the chat the link to our Bike to School Day page. Bike to School Day is May 8th. If anybody, there's a lot of resources at the bottom of that page, like Instagram infographics with the date and, you know, just with the fact that there's a Bike to School Day, there's a flyer down at the bottom of the page. We'll be posting a little, you know, video commercial in a month and not in a month, in a week or two for that day. We also have a recording on that page for of our bike train, how to start a bike train webinar, how to organize a bike train webinar. We had that on March in mid-March. And it was actually a really great bike train. The recording is great. And we also created a little guide on how to lead a bike train that's up on the site. So these are just resources that you could share or use in your communities. And if you have contacts at schools, we're still taking registration for that event through April 10th. And I think at this point we have about 40 schools registered, but I have a feeling we'll get at least 60 schools will register by April 10th, because that's how many participated last year. And we'll see if we get some extra schools. So if anybody has any questions about which schools in your jurisdictions are participating, just shoot me an email and I'll let you know. All the schools that participate will get posters and some swag. And we are trying to support them in forming bike trains, you know, when they can, because we found last year that schools that had bike trains, like last year it was raining, and schools that had bike trains had significantly increased participation on Bike to School Day, and schools that didn't have bike trains
had sort of their usual suspects or maybe even fewer, even though it was an event, a bike to school day event, because it was raining. So it was just really interesting to see that. And on a sunny day, I just can't even imagine, you know, how many more kids will participate. This is our third year doing the event, so we're kind of learning as we go along, how much we can really, schools will be, how much schools are willing to encourage bicycling versus just walking and rolling, you know. So if anyone has any questions, let me know.
Let's do it. And then I guess we're Katati. Oh, go ahead.
Hello. I don't have too many updates. Just want to share that we got our Board of Supervisors authorization to execute a cooperative agreement with Caltrans for the Donald Gap project. We also have BKF on board. I think as of last month or 2 months ago. So they're working on the preliminary designs and getting started for that project. So it's exciting to see the ball rolling a little bit and actually getting stuff going. That's about all I have to share. Guess one other thing is we put some signs up on Hauser Bridge Road a couple weeks ago, and I was excited to see on Strava that folks have already taken photos of it, and it's already the cover photo on the routes. So it's been, at least I take that as a good indication that people have noticed and enjoy it. So hopefully we can get more advanced warning signs and things put in place in the future. And if anyone has any feedback on things like that, happy to hear about it.
All right. Michael. And then Katati, we're, Dana was saying, just finishing up our ATP. The draft is out. You can view it. We're not taking comments anymore, but I might listen to you if you have one. And then we just kicked off, didn't really kick it off. We just kind of went out for RFP for design work for a sidewalk gap project, which would hit several areas in the county, in the city. And amazingly, it has generated a lot of controversy. This on the west side of Katati, it's a little more funky and rural-ish, larger lots, and those people do not want. Many of the people the ones that have signed this petition, do not want to see sidewalks in their neighborhood. And yeah, so it's going into our ATP to put them in these places, and this is an actual project that Public Works is working on. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens there, because I think we need them at least on one side of the street. So we'll have to come up with some sort of context sensitive design or something, but.
Is there justification? I mean, why have they been opposed to
I
it?
think they want to try to retain more of a rural feel in that area. And then also people use their properties poorly by driving on their front yard, and they don't want to lose the ability to just drive up and park. I think is part of it. But we've got a lot of development proposed on the west side, and so that neighborhood is going to feel the effects of the vehicles in that area. So something needs to be done. So it's going to be an interesting battle. It's not a battle, but just to figure out how to work it. Yeah. It's good. Yeah, so that's it. So with that, I don't think there's anything. Oh, shared micromobility updates.
Yeah, I'll just give a quick one for the countywide, or Marin and Sonoma, bike share project. We are working with the jurisdictions on reviewing, site locations that had been developed through the previous contractor and, kind of confirming those and answering some questions that the current contractor has. We have a working group meeting coming up next Thursday, and we'll be talking about site planning as well as some questions that have come up around installation and places that need concrete pads and things like that. We did a little public survey on naming the system. And the top priority came out as Redwood, and to kind of describe something that describes Sonoma County and Marin County. We're kind of working out what that second piece is, if it's Redwood bike share or Redwood bikes, e-bikes, whatever it is, wheels. So we're working with the operator on some design options and looking into some options there. So
I think we do the installation of the racks.
I think we need to talk about that at the meeting because I'm not entirely sure.
Then, the other, is there any questions about that? Okay, and then bicycle and pedestrian counters? Chris Norman does that.
Yeah, I don't have any updates, just they're available. We do have some that are still working. Once the TDA 3 funding is fully approved and under contract with MTC, we'll put in an order for the new equipment, but we do have some that are available, and Adam might have an update.
Yeah,
So-
just get in touch with
Okay.
me if you need them.
Yep.
All right.
Or pedestrian and bikes, that's either one.
All right, any other business comments or announcements? Okay. That. We're adjourned. Good job. Thank you, Ken. I had a good teacher.
Brought us having a sign similar to this.